My name is Michelle. I am your Vice President of the Expert Speaker Events for our AMA Milwaukee chapter. And so just welcome and thank you all for making time. Everyone is on mute except for our panelists today. But if you have questions along the way, we just ask that you use the chat feature. And as we get through the points in our presentation, about the last 10 minutes, we're going to open it up to the Q&A. We'll address some of those chat questions. Before we jump in with our first speaker, Kurt, I'm going to kick it over to Dana, our VP of Membership, to tell you about some updates that are happening with the AMA.
Hey everyone, I'm not sure how many of you that are currently on the call are members or are not members of AMA, but I did want to let all of you know that the American Marketing Association recently changed their membership fee. So it is now $149, which goes to $12.42 per month. They have professional and academic memberships as well as group memberships. So if you are part of a company, you think it would be beneficial for your company to join, you can do larger group memberships and get a discount that way. They do have several opportunities and resources for you as well. So if you are interested in joining AMA and you have questions about it, you can reach out to me directly. I will drop my email into the chat feature. Otherwise, you can find all of the information at ama.org as well. And with that, I will pass it back to Michelle.
Thanks, Dana. Guys, I want to really tell you that we value our members and non-members alike. But with this deep discount that the AMA is giving on membership now, we really encourage you to take advantage of it. Not only does it give you discounts to upcoming events like the one that we're having in June, that we're actually partnering with our sister chapter in Madison as well as Iowa. Members will get a discount there, but you also get access to the vast number of resources through the AMA's website and just other little nuggets of good information that we pass along from our sponsors. So if you have any questions about it, reach out to us, like I said, and we'll be happy to talk to you about membership opportunities. But what we're really here for is to learn about what's going on in the state of business with regards to marketing and manufacturing. Our first presenter today is Kurt Bauer, who is the head of the Wisconsin Manufacturers and Commerce. And he is not a marketer, but he has got some really great insights about the state of manufacturing today and about what the environment's all about. So Kurt, I'm going to kick it over to you and share your knowledge with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Great to be with all of you. Just by way of background, WMC is a hybrid organization with the Wisconsin Manufacturers Association, the Wisconsin Chamber of Commerce, and also the State Safety Council. So we're all three of those entities wrapped into one. We represent about 3,800 businesses of all sizes and all sectors. About 51% of those are manufacturers, however, because Wisconsin is a manufacturing state. About 20% of Wisconsin GDP, at least used to be, accounted for in manufacturing. We have the second highest manufacturing GDP output of any state in the union. We're half a percentage point away from Indiana for that title. So we're a big manufacturing state. About 380,000 Wisconsinites had been working in manufacturing prior to COVID-19. So I'm going to try and provide for you a broad overview of what's happening in the manufacturing economy. I'll give you some national numbers, but I'll primarily focus on what's happening here in Wisconsin as best I can because the situation is still very fluid. I was on the phone yesterday with a group of economists, including some from the UW-Madison and the Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago, and there just isn't clarity even among the experts as far as where we are. It's going to take us, I think, a little bit more time, probably into the third or probably even the fourth quarter before we truly understand where we are. Michelle mentioned I'm not a marketer, but I did start my trade association career as a communications professional, and there was some overlap in the marketing world. So I have great respect for what all of you do. Our marketing team here at WMC has just done an outstanding job dealing with the shutdown and the fire hydrant level of information that's coming at all of us, and trying to distill it and get it out to our members in a way that they can understand and process. So I have very high regard for what all of you have been doing, and the challenges you'll face in the new world order that I think that we're all faced with. So let's talk a little bit about where we are right now, a broad overview. This is an extinction level event for a lot of businesses, and that includes manufacturers, although I'll talk a little bit about how I think manufacturers are probably going to fare better than many sectors of the economy. So where we are with U.S. unemployment rate, officially at 14.7%. That's the highest we've recorded in U.S. history since the Great Depression in the 1930s. The actual number is probably much higher than that, because that doesn't quite account for all of the job losses that we've had. Keep in mind that unemployment rates are a lagging indicator, and monthly numbers are not always all that accurate. You usually wait for the quarterly numbers to really give you an accurate depiction. And so we're, again, third quarter, fourth quarter away from really understanding the true nature of just how bad this has been. That implies basically a 22% unemployment rate is probably closer to where we are nationally. And that's where we estimate we are in Wisconsin. In fact, today, the Department of Workforce Development is supposed to release the official unemployment number for April. Of course, we're 21 days into May. So it'll be a lagging indicator as well. We started this about 3.4% unemployment. We're estimating at least 22%. I think DWD numbers will probably be the high teens, but again, I think we're much higher than that right now. So manufacturing probably hasn't been hit as hard as some sectors of the economy, certainly hospitality, restaurants, entertainment sectors. But keep in mind, manufacturing is a very broad category. There are 22 subsectors of manufacturing. So if you look at it, some of our subsectors here in Wisconsin, food, packaging, medical supplies, outdoor power equipment, sanitation, home cleaning supplies, they're all doing very, very well. And packaging, I was just on the phone actually about a half hour ago with a packager. They're seeing record activity. They're seeing record profits because of the need for the packaging that they're doing for a variety of different in-demand products, including food and medical supplies. We have GE Medical here in Wisconsin, both in the Madison area and in Waukesha. They're doing very well. Outdoor power, I was talking to Dan Ahrens from Ahrens Company in Brilliant. They're doing particularly well because a lot of people are at home and they're spending that time maybe landscaping, and they're buying supplies accordingly. SC Johnson Wax down in Racine doing very well, of course, because they make a lot of household cleaning supplies. Manufacturing was broadly labeled as essential when the Safer at Home order here in Wisconsin began. That's typically true around the country. I think the most restrictive order was in Pennsylvania for manufacturing. Basically, if you were a manufacturer and you could abide by the health and safety best practices and guidelines given down from some groups like ours, the Wisconsin Safety Council, the CDC, and OSHA, you were probably able to stay open. We estimate between 65 and 70% of our manufacturers initially stayed open. Some of them were forced to shut down because they had trouble with workforce. Some workers didn't feel comfortable coming to work. Some health departments, aggressive health departments in counties, harassed some of our manufacturers. And then, of course, we saw a lot of the demand for products that those manufacturers were making began to wane. And so they either shut down some of their shifts, went with a skeleton crew, or shut down altogether. It really just depends on what they were manufacturing and what that supply chain looked like. And let me just make a little bit of a commentary. We have fussed with the definition of essential versus non-essential. From our perspective as representatives of the economy and the private sector, we believe that all businesses, all workers are essential. And just to put a fine point on that, we're going to see very soon just how bad tax collections at all levels, sales tax, property tax, corporate and personal income tax have absolutely collapsed as a result of this. And as governments look to address those massive shortfalls that I think will be much higher than what we saw during the Great Recession, and they were very high back then. I think we'll truly understand just how essential all businesses are, all workers are to the Wisconsin economy, and certainly to our tax base. Businesses are now beginning to reopen. Of course, we had the Supreme Court strike down safer at home here. So essentially, other than pockets of the state, Wisconsin is open for business. Dane County, Milwaukee County, I think the city of Racine are still closed, but we're also seeing a lot of the counties that had initially put in some sort of safer at home or shutdown order beginning to relax those as they realize that they're probably not enforceable from what the Supreme Court ruled. Dane County is being rather stubborn on that. I think Milwaukee County is going to continue to be a little stubborn as well. Frankly, if someone challenges them, I think they'd probably win ultimately in court. But right now, they're being enforced by law enforcement, and as long as that's happening, a lot of businesses are skittish about reopening. But as we begin to open, we have to recognize that we're far from back to normal and will be for quite some time. These shutdowns were not uniform. Now the reopenings are clearly not uniform as well. I think in manufacturing, we're seeing the auto industry reopened. That's going to have an effect on the supply chain. We don't manufacture automobiles in Wisconsin. We still manufacture a lot of vehicles. Oshkosh Corporation, for example, making military vehicles and fire apparatus. But we still have a legacy supply chain from back when we had the old AMC plant down in Kenosha and the GM plant in Janesville. But this is really going to be about where is the consumer going to be? 70% of the U.S. economy is consumer spending. And we saw here in Wisconsin, the Marquette poll that came out last week showed that there is a lot of trepidation about people going back to work and then people just resuming their normal activities as citizens and as consumers. So as long as there is that trepidation, as long as people don't feel comfortable being out in public, resuming their normal activities, whether it's in a retail store or a tavern, a restaurant, that's obviously going to slow down the economic recovery or hold back the economic recovery, which obviously then impacts manufacturing, because of manufacturing one way or the other. Every manufacturer is somehow interrelated in that vast supply chain, and we're fortunate in the upper Midwest. I would argue that we have the best industrial supply chain still in the entire world. But again, it's interdependent on each other. So you look then at global markets. Europe is opening up. They're opening up a little bit faster than we are. But of course, their economy has taken a big hit. So the demand for products manufactured in the United States and that global trade has been impacted. Asia, the same thing. The interesting thing about Asia that I keep getting asked about is that will this have an impact on reshoring? Because you hear a lot of concern about manufacturing being overseas, particularly as it relates to medical supplies and PPEs and some of the things that we have needed during this crisis. Will that reshore? The answer is I'm not really sure. I mean, I think there'll have to be some incentives to bring them back, but you can't bring all of it back for basically two reasons. One is the markets are in Asia. Wealth and population is growing in Asia. It's not growing in North America. It's not growing in Europe. So the bottom line is that your manufacturing typically wants to be where your markets are, and so does your supply chain. So unless that dynamic changes, I don't think that you're going to see a whole-scale shifting of manufacturing back from Asia. And the other aspect of that has to be factored into this is workforce. Going into this, the biggest problem we had in manufacturing was an available workforce. People who wanted to be in manufacturing and were skilled to be in manufacturing. And that's frontline workers to engineers to sales and marketing, people that have those unique skills that you need in manufacturing. We just didn't have enough people, which is why you were seeing a lot of offshoring, not to Asia, but actually to Mexico, because they have an available workforce and the cost of labor is lower there. So I don't know that those two dynamics are going to change. I do think that you'll probably see some reshoring, and frankly, it's not really my role as an advocate for manufacturing, but as an American, I'd like to see us bring some of that back. because I do think that China in particular, with what they have done on COVID-19, has not been certainly a best actor. Of course, prior to that, we've had systematic theft of intellectual property of American manufacturers, really a transfer of wealth that is probably incalculable. And then, of course, they've had some other practices that have not been exactly friendly, which is one of the things that we saw. Manufacturers in Wisconsin actually cheered on President Trump when he instilled all of these tariffs. We thought that manufacturers would be very upset about that, but they finally said we've got to draw a line in the sand, and we can't allow China to have one set of rules versus what we allow for Chinese companies or foreign companies in the United States. So maybe there'll be a balancing there. So the conclusion is that expect continued uncertainty for the foreseeable future. I think it depends a lot on what happens with COVID-19. Obviously, this has been a major global disruption, not just in the United States, but in the markets where we sell things, in Europe, in Asia. And until we have a vaccine, until we have therapeutic treatments that tap down the severity of COVID-19 on vulnerable population groups, the elderly, people with pre-existing conditions, et cetera, I think that this is going to be something that could be very disruptive, because until we have those things in place, we are going to see flare-ups, and we'll probably see periodic shutdowns. Right now, China is experiencing a second wave. We've heard other areas of Asia are experiencing a second wave. How severe are they? Do they lead to full-scale shutdowns again? The same thing is true in Europe. Same thing is true here in the United States. We know that we will see flare-ups. We would advocate against another statewide shutdown. We think that they should be addressed as they occur regionally and by sector, because there are different risk profiles for different sectors and for different regions of the state. So we're going to see more, confusion and disruptions. We're going to see continued travel restrictions, which has been a real problem both in the state, within the country, and of course globally, and that has an impact. I mean, if you're based here in Wisconsin and you have manufacturing facilities around the world that you can't visit, that's obviously going to have a major disruption on your operations. And then here, we know that our manufacturers are likely to have visitor restrictions. So to what extent marketers need to be on site, that might be a lot more of a challenge. I think you're going to have to continue to do more of what we're doing right now. This is the Zoom or video conference economy, and I think it's here to stay for the foreseeable future. So Michelle, that's kind of a broad overview of how we see things. I'm sorry I can't offer you more certainty. Again, in my defense, I was on with those economists, as I indicated, and they don't see clarity just yet. It's going to take a little time for us to figure this all out, and we'll have to do it together.
Kurt, thank you so much for sharing all that really great and valuable information. And actually, the way you wrapped it up is a great segue into our marketing panel that's going to share their insights from many different aspects. So I'd just like to take a moment to introduce our 4 other guest speakers today. We have Dave from Cussle Equipment. We have Jeff from Stream Creative, Jeremy from Canon, and Caleb from Facture. So as Kurt was just saying, as businesses are reopening, but not necessarily letting sales teams come through their doors for these in-person and on-site meetings. Hey guys, how have you or are you adjusting to this whole situation and providing sales support so we can get businesses moving forward? Dave, I'm going to kick it over to you and you can share your insights first.
Sure. Thanks, Michelle. Yeah, so like Kurt was saying, with us, we work in the United States and Canada for about 99% of our business, and we've had to become experts on what each state is allowing and what each state is not allowing. We talk to our reps in Texas, and they're allowed to go into offices by appointment, and we talk to our reps in New York, and they're not allowed to leave their houses. So to Michelle's question of how are we providing sales support, it's really on a case-by-case basis. What do people need? What are they looking for? What creativity are they looking for from us to support them in their sales efforts? And each one has a unique selling proposition, even though it's our product, which has really created a lot of opportunity for marketing in our business.
Jeff, what are you guys seeing over at Stream?
So we've been using this time to help our clients optimize their digital channels, whether that's going to be things like on your website. If you haven't already implemented online chat or a chat bot, taking that opportunity to implement something like that. Or it could be looking at, your on-hold experience. So with more calls coming in than visits, is that on-hold experience optimized in communicating your value proposition the best of its ability? And you can also take a look at things like text messaging, being able to communicate people in a way that they want to be communicated with. Take a look at their email marketing programs. Can we be leveraging email marketing automation or sales sequences to be able to improve our email communication, whether it's from effectiveness and efficiency perspective? And then also something simple as with LinkedIn. How do we go in and train sales teams to be able to leverage LinkedIn for prospecting or to connect with influencers? So what we'll see as a sales team, they'll have an account, but they don't necessarily know how to use that to generate new business. So if we can train them on how to prospect better, how to connect with influencers to increase engagement, whether that's comment on other posts. And then we can take a look at more complex things. So can we build some sort of product selector or a product configurator? And how can we leverage video in the sales process to be able to give that face-to-face experience in lieu of being able to actually be there sitting across the conference table from a prospect? How can we take that these tools and build that digital experience to replicate what they were doing when they were able to go and meet with prospects? It could be something like a product walk-around video, so showing the equipment or the product in action. Plant tours. We often hear that people say if we can get somebody in our facilities, that helps the sales process. So, we're working with them to be able to do things like that. And this really during this time is where we've seen the importance of people investing in their own digital platforms. So investing in inbound marketing, content marketing, to be able to leverage search engine optimization and content marketing to get found by new prospects. And we have had clients where in the case of trade shows being canceled, they've been able to directly communicate with their audience, whether it's through product launch or all the things that they were going to say at a trade show. They're able to do that now because they spent the last few years investing in their own digital platform so they can speak directly to their audience.
Jeremy, what about from Canon's perspective?
Yeah, certainly what just kind of echoing what what the other panelists have been sharing is really in my business, we are B2B, and really what we used to do on site, we now need to shift online. Certainly we've all been becoming experts in Zoom and Teams and Slack and all the other tools. So it's just making sure that we have a robust portfolio of materials to share with our customers digitally. With that, earlier this year, actually before this whole pandemic arose, we introduced a sales tool app that really provides our sales team with all of our content, our library of content, whether it's brochures, videos, interactive calculators, anything like that in a closed app that we arm our sales team with, and they can actually share content or select contact with their customers digitally. So we don't need them to really have those interactive or those face-to-face meetings. But certainly with, as some businesses are starting to open up, some are more, I don't want to say accepting of us to come in, but some would actually prefer us to come in. It's very limited at this point, but certainly right now, a lot of it we need to make sure that we have a robust digital portfolio to make sure our team has the right content for the right customer. Perfect.
Last but definitely not least, Caleb, gonna send this question back over to you and hear what's going on from the Factur's perspective. And hey, bud, love the fact that you told everybody to connect with you guys on LinkedIn. So other panelists too, please feel free to throw your LinkedIn information in the chat. But getting back to the question at hand, what are you guys doing?
Well, all the good ideas are gone, when you're last here, so, but anyway, I'd say for us, we really see things through a prospecting lens. And so that's really one of the ways that what we do for our clients. And so part of it is just upping the volume. And so we have found that from a data perspective, the open rates on emails and success rates have actually been similar to worldwide quarantine situations, but upping the volume has helped. And it has seemed too that some companies that in the past weren't open to new suppliers have been open due to the fact that their current supplier may be in a state that's not as open, or their current supplier may be struggling with demand and their own supply and so forth. So we've seen people more open. And I echo what Jeff said about LinkedIn. And so this has been a great time. We've encouraged our clients, like, up your game on LinkedIn. Make sure you have a profile that when people come by, make sure you have a profile that when people come by it, they know what you do and they know how to engage with you. And more people seem to be on LinkedIn. Maybe it's because there's a lot of unemployed people out there. Maybe it's because people think they might be unemployed. But regardless, this is the time to use the LinkedIn platform, to have a good profile, to post a lot, to comment a lot. Make sure that you're showing up in other people's feeds.
Love it. Yeah, absolutely. Connect with these panelists, connect with each other on LinkedIn. The AMA, we've got our group too, so make sure to connect with us there. But keeping this conversation moving along. So we kind of talked about like what we're doing now, what we have been doing. Dave, how do you see things changing in the next few months?
Yeah, that's the great unknown, right, Michelle? Everybody's trying to decide what's the secret sauce going to be. And, Caleb hit it on the head: amplify, amplify, amplify. And from what we're seeing in the future, it's really, what are the creative ways we can cut the messaging, right? All the marketers want to know, how do I get somebody to take a look at what I'm talking about and hear me and see me? And, we're a 171-year-old manufacturer here in Watertown, Wisconsin. And we haven't had a marketing department until 3 years ago. So we've built a brand over the last 3 years. And we were just starting to get our marketing going, which was great. Jeff brought up the product configurator. We're working on a configurator right now so people can take a look at what products we offer and how we offer them and how they can be put together and manufactured for specific needs. We went back to the discussion of how, if you can't get into an office, how can you get in? Sure, everybody said it's a Zoom platform. I had a representative that we deal with in Nebraska today tell me, people sell to people, and this doesn't feel like selling to a person. What am I supposed to do? And I said, hey, Mark, here's the best way to do this. Bring your personality. You're still a salesperson. You're still a great guy. Have that conversation. Well, I want to sit next to somebody's desk for 20 minutes and get to know who I'm dealing with. You can still do that via here. You just can't, have a beer with them after you guys get done talking. So we're really looking at the opportunities moving forward for our creativity to show through. And that's what I would say to a lot of other marketers. How creative can you be? I have a national sales manager in Virginia who's in the air 40 weeks out of the year, and he's going stir crazy. He's been home for 12 weeks. He doesn't know what to do with himself. I've gotten him to start recording emails. He sends out an email update every week. I said, put your voice to it, put video to it. Let people see you, let people know you. And that's been a great way, again, for us to kind of cut through that clutter as we move forward. I know we're going to talk a little bit, farther in the discussion about trade shows. What are we going to do if trade shows don't come back? Or what do we do if trade shows are virtual? Or what do we do if trade shows, go down to 10% attendance? Those are a lot of questions that, as our organization is looking at moving forward. We do 5 shows a year. Yeah, that's not a lot, but for us, there's a lot of leads that come from those 5 shows. So how do we get creative and control our own destiny, as Jeff and Caleb, said? And that's really what we're taking this time to do, is really finding the ways to grab our destiny and move forward. And it's really through creativity.
And creativity comes through a lot of different areas. One of the ways that we are very creative is in our messaging strategy. So Caleb, I'm going to kick it back to you over in Indiana. What are you guys doing, with changing your strategy, and speaking to these companies?
Yeah, so I love Dave's creative thoughts. I would say, this may sound kind of strange, but empathy. So like, this is a time to be a little bit more empathetic with people, and like put that in some of your messaging. Like, hey, I understand, like, you're probably teaching 3rd grade science alongside, trying to engineer, new metal fabricated part. Like just like inserting empathy in your messaging. And then I want to talk about video too. So video embedded in email, to me, is really the future. I think people are going to be doing a ton of it. And I think it's a great way to stand out. So we use a ton of tools of video embedded into email. And so, like, for example, someone says, tell me about your equipment. Walk around your shop, take a video of yourself, show them the equipment. And it doesn't have to be production quality. People aren't expecting that. They're just, they want their questions answered. They don't need, fancy logo ins and outs and professional audio video quality.
Well, Jeff, you guys have been masters of this video thing for quite a while over at Stream. I know I've seen some of the stuff that you guys have done over the years as being a speaker. Tell everybody, like, how is video playing a role not only in your marketing, but how you're helping your clients market too?
So I think everyone on this call understands the importance of video and being able to create a human connection. So whether it's being more empathetic, as was mentioned a moment ago, or just being able to better show your personality, we're working with our clients to be able to say, again, how do we replicate that in-person experience? We mentioned earlier, I was talking about how we're using video for things like product walkarounds. How can you show a piece of equipment in action or highlight some of the key features? Planned tours are important, but it's also taking a look at how can you do things that you've already been doing, such as a webinar, and make that a more engaging experience by doing it on Zoom. So similar to what we're doing here today is to be able to engage more with people. And what we always say is what Amazon did for the shopping experience, Zoom has now done for the professional communication space. So the bar has been raised. So no longer leaving a voicemail or only doing emails or phone calls. It just isn't going to be enough. The bar's been raised. And so now there's this expectation that we can connect and share video and do video conference calls. And what's really nice is it gives us the opportunity to connect with people, prospects, current customers on a whole nother level, because not only are we seeing our faces and our expressions, but in this case that we're in right now, where a lot of folks are still working from home, we're getting to see them in their personal environment. And I can psychologically, there's those triggers where I can learn more about you based on the environment that you're in. So I can see the background, whether it's artwork on your wall or just the overall environment. So it allows us to give a window into more of our personal life, which can create and build trust and build that experience or the personalized experience. So again, we talked about, again, whether it's taking webinars over to Zoom, and the biggest thing that we're working with our clients is just to teach them to get comfortable with it. And in a sense, just not to be so critical of themselves. One obstacle with this is the technology piece of it. And Zoom has really done a good job in taking that away. It's made it very easy for people, and we've just had to get comfortable with it. With the remote working situation. So you can take the technology piece out of it now because people are comfortable with it. And then the other piece is just for people to, as I mentioned, not be so critical, to not sit here and be worrying about, well, I look goofy or I didn't say this perfectly. Because the reality is when you're sitting across a conference room from somebody face to face, you don't get to take that comment back, right? You said what you said, you maybe stumbled on your words, and you can't say, hold on, can I take a different take on that? So for us, it's really training our clients to be able to say, okay, where is video? How can that support your current sales process? How can it support your communication process? And not to put so much pressure on yourself that it has to be this big Hollywood experience. If you can show somebody a piece of equipment or a process or your plant, or you can do just an online demo, I think the expectation is that's good enough, certainly now, but I feel like that's going to be more of the standard. Not that there's not a place for your more polished and professional videos. There's a need for those, but in the sales process, looking to create some of those one-to-one videos and to increase your overall experience with your customers and your prospects by using video as a rich medium, I think is a really big opportunity for companies right now.
And this is the new norm. And as we get into it, like before we let everybody into the room, I told all the guys here, check your teeth, make sure the broccoli's out, right? Because we still got to put our best face forward. As you pointed out, Jeff, we've got our personal life and our professional life, and we're trying to like blend them all together in this nice little yin yang, right? But sometimes it's not fitting so good. The neighbors are getting new siding, or we gotta be really understanding and accepting of this is just the way it's going. And at least video technology is giving us the opportunity to still continue to engage. Like Dave was saying, the sales guys who want to go out for a beer, well, maybe it's now turned into a virtual happy hour. I know that those networking opportunities, the ability to have a beer, grab a cup of coffee, talk to the guy next to you on the treadmill as you're getting ready to go down to the trade show, were really great opportunities to connect. Jeremy, so I'm just going to ask you, like, how are others reaching out to customers in lieu of the trade shows right now?
Yeah, it certainly is crazy times. What's interesting, my company has been, there's been phases where we just don't go to trade shows and then we're in them and then we kind of go back and forth. And this year, we actually, we were planning to go to one in early March in Atlanta, and we're going to be introducing 3 new products, and 2 of which were very close to coming to market, and one was further, it was in a phase where we wanted to get some feedback from customers, and all of a sudden, pandemic hits, and we actually pulled out of the trade show. So now it's like, okay, what do we do? And when I look at the purpose of a trade show, and certainly, just the networking outside of the show floor, it's you really can't replace that. But there's ways what we can do is, and when I look at it, there's things that we can do for reaching out to new customers, and there's things that we can be doing to kind of rekindle those relationships with our current customers. Now, in B2B, it is different than if it was a consumer trade show, and really it's all about relationship selling. And so, we are using Zoom heavily. A lot of our customers are, that's completely acceptable. But then also argue, with the discussion on videos, we can't take enough video, and so that's one thing that really amped up in my my strategy for this year, including just making sure that we have content that resonates with our audience in the digital format. And one thing we're doing really to help enhance that is we're getting close to having a augmented reality upgrade that'll help us launch new products. We have some products that are maybe the size of like a NFL linebacker to the size of a school bus. And so it's really tough to show that, to bring this out to a customer all the time, but I can give them a link to download an app so they can actually see the product full size in either their warehouse, on their office floor. They can interact with it. We can create hotspots on there. They can spin the product around, do some interactive points so you can see things, how it moves or how it functions. And on top of that, we're also building a configurator so you can see how this could fit in your location in a non-standard format. So those are things that we're really ramping up. And then for the new customers, a lot of it is making sure that we have, going through an SEO audit right now just to make sure that we are doing the right things that we can from that perspective. Paid ads, it's brand new to my company. We haven't done that in the past. We're starting to do that, more of that now. Really get into the social media. We're learning a lot, we're stumbling a lot, but we're moving forward, ensuring that we have great web content to help meet with those customers or help make some introductions with customers that we haven't worked with in the past. And also the augmented reality app that I did mention, that is something that we'll make available to customers as well. So really, if I look at what we're doing this year versus last year, it is going to be a night and day difference, but I think it's going to be in the right direction. And when things kind of calm down or go back to quote normal, I still think we will still retain a lot of this digital focus going forward.
Awesome.
And then one last thing I was thinking about is really with the core of our marketing strategy, regardless, it all comes down to new product development and making sure that we have a fantastic product to speak with customers about. It's one thing to have, it comes down to your content. So if we have a very compelling reason to interact and to call you and to share information with you, that makes things just so much easier.
Nice.
So that's it.
Well, we're going to take about another, 10 minutes here with a few more questions for our panelists. But guys, remember, everybody who is logged in, if you have questions, throw them into the chat. We'll get to those in just a little bit. But before we do, Dave, I want to talk to you again. So, we talked about, trade shows and how that was really, could be a part of strategy for gaining sales. But what should we be doing while production and sales have slowed down right now?
Yeah, and Michelle, it's a great question. And Jeff and Caleb hit the nail on the head. One of the things that we're really working toward is getting real human connections. And I thought it would be a great time during our work at Homestay to really work on buyer personas, get our sales team together and really just start identifying who we're selling to. As a marketer, I've always believed whether you're B2B or B2C, there's always a C at the end of the line. So you want to say you're B2B, that's great, but that person's motivated by something. So really work on that buyer persona and understand who you're communicating with and how you're communicating to them. We talked about creativity. It's a great way to get creative juices flowing and going, hey, you know what? I'm trying to reach this guy, like Jeremy had just said. I want an excuse to call this guy. Well, guess what? I just came up with an excuse doing buyer persona, and this is the way I'm going to go forward and start talking to him and really connect with him.
Jeremy, have you guys been doing anything with the buyer personas as well during this time?
Not as much. And really what we've done as an organization is really we're looking for opportunities for us to pivot and I hesitate to say capitalize on the opportunity, but understand how people are living their lives today. It's different than it was a few months ago. I mean, if you think about it, how has your shopping experience changed? How has your, just going to the bank or doing anything? It's like, and then looking at that and saying, okay, the customers we serve, they're in the retail industry, they're in e-commerce, things like that. Certainly what they are doing is changing very fast. And how can we as a company then work with them to help alleviate their pains? And so it's really requiring us for us to act quickly. It's a lot of it's uncharted territories. And so as a company, we're looking at some of these new opportunities just to really help grow our business and to help solve our customers' problems in different ways. And that's so far it's been working very well. So
great. I want to now take this back to Jeff and Caleb here from that agency perspective, right? So, hearing Dave's story about how really they didn't have a marketing department until about 3 years ago. Jeremy, they're doing pivots and things like that. From that agency perspective, how are marketers leveraging their relationships with you at this time? Jeff, do you want to start off giving some insight here?
So we really see people using agencies and how our customers are using us. It's really twofold. It's versatility and then just that outside perspective. And when we talk about versatility, it could simply be adding more hands on deck, but oftentimes it's really about how do you expand your areas of expertise. So for example, you may have an in-house team of 1 to 3 marketers, and maybe they're very skilled at traditional marketing efforts, but when everything was forced to move online and to be more of that digital experience, how can you leverage an agency partner who's maybe stronger in the technology side of things? So, or the tactical or inbound best practices. So it could be things like search engine optimization, marketing automation and sales sequences, pay-per-click things, social, paid social, organic social. So for us, it's really that versatility of not only having people help execute it, but help do it in a manner that supports digital best practices, if that's, again, a skill set you don't have internally. And then, as I mentioned, outside perspective, we can be a sounding board for our clients. So they'll often ask us, what are other clients or what are you seeing outside of our industry? And we can share some of those experiences that have worked really well. As I mentioned earlier, a trade show, how do we move that trade show experience to make it digital? So I think people just appreciate the fact that we can help them fill in any gaps that they currently have, give them more hands on deck, and then just be that sounding board for their current needs.
So Caleb, we want your perspective.
Yeah, all my good ideas are just taken again. So I
promise if you come back again, I'll put you first next time.
No, it's okay. It's okay. That was really smart. I was like, I wish I could talk like that. But I think, we like to look at the manufacturer. We like to look at sales process like a manufacturing plant floor. You have raw material going in one door and you have, a finished product going out the other door. And along that way, you have specialists, right? You wouldn't have your welder packet, putting boxes together and so forth. And so we're kind of a specialist. We're in the prospecting space. And so we feel like, we become experts in that. But also, we encourage our clients, outsource things that's not your core competency. If that's not your core competency, you're probably better off outsourcing your website, your video production and so forth to a company like Jeff's or Nicole or somebody like that specialize in that, as opposed to you figuring that out, just like your plant floor.
Great. Gentlemen, I am going to take this conversation now into some questions that are appearing in the chat. So Dave, if you can't hear my dog barking, he had a question for you.
Awesome.
But we actually have a question from our group here for you. It's, are manufacturers receptive to agency introductions right now? It seems many are saying, we aren't entertaining agency introductions during the pandemic. What are you looking for in an agency relationship?
Well, I think the easiest question to say is, I don't think I'd ever say no to an introduction of anything. This is a great forum for exactly that answer. Caleb's given great ideas. Jeff's given great ideas. Jeremy's given great ideas. So I would always be entertaining conversations and talking. What I'm looking for in an agency relationship would be what I always look for in a selling relationship. How is this going to be beneficial for both of us? I don't want it to be a one-way street. Caleb's hit the nail on the head. I'm not going to sit here and create a website. I'm going to go out and find somebody that I'm working with to do that. So there's creativity in all kinds of places. And I think at this time more than ever, I think you want to entertain those conversations, even if it's not something that you really think is going to lead to something, because eventually it could.
Good. And okay, so Caleb, from that perspective of the agency, are you guys coming up with any like good ways to get into the door and meet with people these times, during these times?
Are you saying for our clients or for our business?
For your business.
Yeah. I mean, I think, we're creating new ways to do that some, but I think it's also process improvement for us too. So trying to identify our bottlenecks in our sales process where we can improve and so forth. So being a product of what we talk about, sometimes a cobbler's wife has their shoes. So we have to be good at selling ourselves as well. And so we've taken a lot of time identifying our own kind of processes and using virtual platform and using video embedded email, improving our SEO, finding new people that can do better sales and marketing stuff for us as well. It's a great time. They always say that businesses cut sales and marketing during, lower revenue times. And that's true. But a lot of people know that and know that they should probably ramp it up during those times because it's an opportunity to gain market share. So we're just trying to find those people. Who are the people that want to buck that normal trend?
Mm-hmm. Very good. We have about 10 more minutes left. And if anybody has any additional questions, drop them into the chat. But in the meantime, we'll wait to see if there's any other insights people want to share. To our panelists, do you have any other thoughts or, golden nuggets, events coming up that you think that, we would really love to be able to leverage here? Jeff?
So I just want to piggyback off something Jeremy said earlier. We're talking about how things have changed and how we adapt to that. So some of the things that we've seen is that certainly prospects and customers and clients have more distractions than they ever did before, trying to figure out all the things that are going on with the pandemic, the work from home situations, and adjusting to that. So their 9 to 5 is even crazier and more distraction filled than it had been before. But on the flip side, they may have more capacity in their schedule in the evenings. So just using myself as an example, I think about, when I used to race off after work and we had kids' activities and I was coaching their sports and doing all that, that had simply been now removed from my calendar. And so now you have more people essentially looking for positive distractions. So maybe that's that opportunity where, okay, I feel like I've watched as many TV shows as I possibly can. Now I'm going to be able to work on myself or my business, whether it's process improvements or efficiencies, or how do we improve our sales techniques. So it's really, how do we give them the resources to be able to better themselves or fill that need that they have as they're online searching more. So again, it's just one of those things where we've been looking at it and finding opportunities to be able to provide those resources for people who are more active online in the evenings.
Jeff, I want to piggyback on that. I don't have any children, but I have had a very active social life. I taught fitness classes 2 nights a week. I was always going to sporting events. And now that I'm at home, I'm actually using this opportunity to take that time after my workday to put out plans for creating new business opportunities for myself, pursuing my own passions. I mean, I'm not a painter, I'm not a crafter or anything like that. I'm a marketer. And I have ideas for companies and, just kitschy little sayings, or, as you're scrolling through your Instagram feed, did you like this type of photography? Do you, what is it that you like? Create your own vision board. Create your vision board for your life, create your vision board for your career, create your vision board for your company. I think this is a wonderful opportunity for us to just self-reflect. I'm not preaching to anybody, but like you said, try something different.
Yeah, well said.
Sorry, Jeff. I was going to say, just jumping in on that, Michelle, what we've tried to do, we've created a new forum and we call it Coffee with Kuzel. And we do it in the mornings. We reach out to some of our biggest customers. And honestly, I don't put an agenda together. Hey, how you doing? How's things going? To Jeff's point, there are guys who used to be basketball coaches who want to complain that they can't coach their basketball team anymore. And I'll be honest and say, in the last couple of weeks that we've been doing them, I've had some of the best business discussions in the years I've worked here at Kuzel, because all of a sudden everything's kind of just stripped away and it's a conversation. It's not a business. It's not a sell. It's not pushing you to go one way or the other. It's free flowing and we're having a discussion. So I would say, you know, the best thing I think that maybe all of us could take away from this is, to Jeff's point, and Michelle, what you're saying, people are looking to better themselves. They want to talk, they want to interact, they want to have conversations. Give them a forum to do that and find ways that you can amplify that.
Yeah, Dave, you know what you should do? You should surprise some of your people who, you know, join the call with Streusel from Kuzel.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Anybody else got some insights, you know, ideas, cool things that you've seen?
One thing that we've noticed at our agency is that we've seen a really big uptick in media relations. A lot of the pitching's quieted down, and so your success rate of pitching stories today has increased significantly. In fact, reporters are lacking content. We're getting at our agency requests from almost every trade publication we work with on behalf of our manufacturers looking for stories. So as we all look at automation, sometimes old school works. This good old story pitching and telling stories and trying to get that content out there. So we've seen typically, you know, media relations is about a quarter of what we do. It's almost become a half of what we do, and we're sustainably keeping very busy with telling stories to trade pubs. So if I'm you guys, I'd be looking at that as well.
Oh, I would love to have story time with you, Brian Lamont.
I actually have a question too, Michelle, and for Caleb. And this is more on like the paid media side of, you know, have you seen anything? I know every manufacturer is different, so there's going to be different strategies for each one. But for paid media, paid search, or paid social, or where are you seeing success, or what do you think would be a good strategy going forward?
So I think paid can work. We personally, that's not one of our strategies we use. We're much more of a push strategy. I think maybe Jeff's firm or Jeremy's maybe more kind of involved in that. I don't want to speak for them. I have heard of that working. So Jeff, I don't know if you could speak to that. Is that something that you guys have done?
So some of the things that we've done in realm of paid is, as we talk about, more people are online, and we've seen they're more engaged on LinkedIn. They're committing to that because they know they have to, and they're really committed to just figuring this stuff out, in their words. So really for us, we've been looking at an opportunity to use things like paid advertising on LinkedIn, because you can really get super targeted, whether it's like an account-based marketing approach, whether you're targeting by job titles, roles, responsibilities, companies, geography, whatever it may be, and in some cases, all of those things. So how do we leverage LinkedIn to be a paid platform or channel for some of our clients? The other things we're looking at too would be things like over-the-top TV. So they're going to leverage some of those streaming services where you feel like more people are watching Netflix, your Hulus, all your streaming services. So because we have a more engaged audience over on that platform, is this an opportunity to be able to look at some of those things? But definitely we encourage people, you know, take a look at the LinkedIn opportunities, but then look at some of those other services and paid channels that are available. And then it's, again, still sticking with the things that we currently would be doing, which would be paid search to be able to be found there, supporting any of your social media efforts by adding that paid component as well. But definitely we're seeing LinkedIn as a great place for people to start if this is an area that you haven't dabbled in before.
Jeremy, have you guys seen any difference in what you guys are doing from a paid ad strategy?
Well, we just actually got started on that this year, so it's tough to say if things are working or not. But one thing I have noticed out of the pilot that we have done is certainly investing in LinkedIn is working much better than just doing a Google Ads. We're seeing a lot more engagements from our connections on LinkedIn. And then the traffic that we do get from LinkedIn to our site, they stay longer, they are more engaged, and we're also, quite often they lead to filling out a lead form that we don't see as much on just a Google ad search. So while this year I'm planning to still continue piloting both, I can see putting a lot more of my focus and investments into LinkedIn versus just a Google ad.
It's interesting that you're talking about, the greater engagement. I wonder, you know, now that we just maybe have slowed down a little bit,
Mhm.
have a little bit more time on our hands, are we taking time to read the content that's out there a bit more, right? Digesting it.
Yep.
You know, for me, I
Yeah.
feel like I can't consume enough, whether it's the podcast when I'm walking the dog, the TV shows that I'm watching and, you know, getting the ideas down. Yeah, you know, the emails, the webinars, all this stuff.
Michelle, when you mentioned podcasts, that's a great one. It's one that we haven't even talked about. But you think about, you know, if I use my subdivision in my neighborhood as a focus group, I think about all the different people I see out walking their dogs, and the more couples walking than I've ever seen before, which is a good thing. But a lot of them will have earbuds in. And so podcasts are a great opportunity to be able to connect with somebody in a very intimate way. We always joke, like, what's more intimate than being in somebody's ear? So we encourage people to try it, and it doesn't have to be intimidating. It doesn't have to be creating these 45-minute podcast episodes. Start with something 5 to 10 minutes where you're just sharing a best practice that you're finding, or find a trusted colleague that you can just simply do a little bit of Q&A back and forth and share that just to get started. It's actually much easier than you probably think. But we often, you know, the mindset and the psychological piece of this too is like, think about people listening to podcasts versus being at work and all the distractions they have at work, what their inbox looks like if we're trying to do email marketing. Not that, again, we shouldn't be doing those things, but when you think about podcasts, it's an opportunity to catch people when they're in a less distracted mindset. So if you think about their morning or evening walks, you're building and you're catching them at a better state of mind, more of the Zen mindset than it is all the busy distractions that happen during their 9 to 5. So certainly I'm glad you brought that up, because it's a great opportunity for companies to be trying that. And it's a channel that continues to grow and has been growing for a long, long time in terms of viewers, but there's less competition in that area. So definitely something people should check out.
Jeff, are you looking at my vision board? I've been thinking about these 5-minute podcasts for a long time. What can you say in 5 minutes that's going to have a good impact? If anybody wants to pursue this, reach out to me.
Michelle, could I ask one more question of
Yeah,
Kelly
I was going to
real quick
say
in the
we'll
end?
take one more.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. So I was just on the more organic side than not paid, but I know you do a lot of email outreach and that type of thing. Do you have some like quick tips of like what everybody's inboxes are just slammed, and probably more now than ever? Do you have some tips on how to be the one that gets opened or acted on?
I use a wordsmith that figures all that stuff out. But what he is told me is just A/B test. So you know, and he does that all on our behalf. So so do campaign A versus campaign B, right? And then if B is better than A, introduce C, and so that's what works well for us. And yeah, in email campaigns are about winning by volume too, right? Like, yeah. Most people get too many emails. Anybody here not get enough emails? Anybody at the end of the day say, I wish I would have got more email today? No, but you know, it still works. We see it work for people every day, and we will send out probably 55,000 emails today. And so our open rates, you know, aren't that much better than a lot of other people's, but we just have better people getting those emails. We have better targeted data. We have better messaging and so forth, and so therefore we get good results from that. So I would say just test and then win by volume.
I love it. Well, hey everybody, we are 1 minute away until 1 o'clock. So super glad we kept this thing on a good course with everybody's time. Really appreciate every single one of you for spending your lunch hour with us. To Kurt and the rest of the panel, you guys were awesome. We love your insights. Please connect with everybody on LinkedIn and look for our email to come post event here with the recording as well as the survey link. Again, your feedback is really important to us, and look for communications to come your way about our June event where we're going to be partnering with Madison as well as an Iowa chapter. As a member, you can get into that event and future events at a discount. You guys have a wonderful Memorial Day weekend. Be safe, have fun, relax, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks, everybody.
High five.
Bye-bye.
High five.
Thanks. Bye.